Hi, this is from Groovy Entertainment. Today we got a record to play for you. Today, record Tarzan for 1983. So let's get started.
This is the story of a boy named Tarzan and of how he came to live in the jungle. The tale begins before Tarzan was born. His father and mother, John and Alice Clayton, were sent on a dangerous mission along the coast of Africa. They had almost reached their destination when the crew of the ship revolted against the wicked Captain Billings, and the command of the vessel was taken over by a burly crew member named Black Michael.
I'm the captain of this ship now. what I say! Go!
But what of my wife and I, sire? We have done you no harm. What will become of us?
Just keep to yourselves, and nobody will harm you. Old Black Michael has got himself a plan. You'll soon see.
Black Michael knew that it would be impossible to return John Clayton and his wife back to civilization without getting himself into trouble. He had decided to put the young couple ashore on the wild African coast. John Clayton begged Black Michael to reconsider.
If I were alone, I would not protest your plan. But I have my wife to consider. You can't expect her to have our baby in the wilds of the jungle.
Have no fear, sire. Once we put you ashore, we'll let the British Navy know where you're staying. They'll send a man of war for you in a month or two.
We will never know if Black Michael would have kept his word, because a few days after they were put ashore on the savage African coast with their few belongings, the ship and all its crew were lost in a terrible storm. Once the wreckage was found, the Navy assumed that everyone on board had been killed, and they gave up the search for any survivors. So John Clayton and his young, expectant wife, Lady Alice, were left to live or perish in the wild jungles of Africa.
Oh, John, the horror of it. What are we going to do?
There is but one thing to do, Alice, and that is work. Work must be our salvation. We must not give ourselves time to think, for in that way lies madness. We must work and wait. I'm sure help will come. Once they realize that the ship is lost, they will come looking for us, even if Black Michael doesn't keep his word to us.
But, John, if it were only you and I, we could endure it, I know, but...
Yes, dear. I have been thinking of that too. But we must face whatever comes bravely and with confidence. We can handle whatever comes our way. I know it. Hundreds of thousands of years ago, our ancestors faced similar problems, probably right here in these same jungles. They survived, and so will we. We can do anything they could do. Besides, we have better weapons and much more knowledge. We will make it. I promise you.
I only hope that you're right. I will try my best and help in every way I can.
The first thing we will need is shelter. We will need some sort of protection from the wild animals. I have a plan.
Working together, they built a small and simple tree house. They cut 4 strong branches from a nearby tree and tied them together with rope they had taken from the ship. This square formed the base of the floor. Then they wove thinner branches to make the floor more solid. Some of the tropical plants that grew in the area had large, thick leaves. They used these gigantic leaves to cover the floor. The roof of the treehouse was made the same way. They covered the sides of the shelter with sailcloth from the ship. Before nightfall, their little house was complete. They moved some of their lighter belongings up into the treehouse, along with the rifles and ammunition.
Well, Alice, what do you think of our new home? I told you we could do it if we worked together.
It is not nearly as fine as our home back in England, but for now, it will have to do.
So, John and Alice Clayton spent their first night in the jungle, high up in the trees. The wind blew their little shelter back and forth, and all through the long night, they could hear the screaming and roaring of wild animals. Once, during the night, Alice thought she spotted something strange coming out of the woods.
John, look! What is it? A man?
As John turned his eyes in the direction she had indicated, he saw silhouetted against the shadows beyond a great figure standing upright on the ridge. For a moment, it stood as though listening, and then turned and melted into the shadows of the jungle.
What was it, John?
I do not know, Alice. It is too dark to see so far. It may have only been a shadow cast by the rising moon.
No, John. If it was not a man, then it was some huge and horrible mockery can. Oh, I'm afraid.
As the long months passed, John Clayton and his wife learned to live in the jungle. They built a larger and stronger house, a log cabin in a clearing in the jungle. This house was not up in the trees and needed thick walls with strong doors and windows to keep out the beasts who roamed the jungle clearing at night, looking for food. Although it was far from perfect, slowly but surely, the house became their home. There was no shortage of food or water. John had brought dried pork and beans from the ship. The jungle also supplied their food. There were large, delicious fruits within their reach, and many small edible animals they could hunt or trap. The monkeys and the brightly colored tropical birds chattered and watched on in wonderment as this strange and clever new animal learned to share their world. The monkeys seemed to be the friendliest of all the jungle animals. As they grew braver, they would scamper into the clearing around the house to play.
Look, John, that scamp has stolen your hat. What an adorable little monkey.
Hey, you rascal! Give me back my hat. It's much too big for you. Well, I don't find it one bit funny. Give it me, you long-tailed devil.
By now, the monkey was swinging from tree to tree with John's hat clutched tightly in his fuzzy little hand and screaming wildly. Soon, John's amusement turned to anger. He grabbed a long stick and was trying to knock the monkey out of the tree. Alice laughed even harder now.
Give me that hat! I'll get you! Just wait! Oh, my hat! My very favorite hat!
Suddenly, and for no apparent reason, the monkey stopped his chatter and dropped the hat. It tumbled down through the thick growth of leaves and landed not 10 feet from where John was standing. John picked up the hat, dusted it off, and was about to put it back on his head where it belonged when his wife spoke.
You found it funny just a few moments ago.
No, not the hat. The silence. Listen.
John and his wife stood in the jungle clearing and, like two wild animals, strained their senses to the limit.
It's eerie. All the birds stopped singing. The monkeys have climbed high into the trees.
Well, I don't like it at all.
Then, in an instant, faster than the reflex of a wild beast, the silence was shattered by a human scream.
Ah! Oh, no, look!
Charging at them from out of the underbrush came the gigantic man brute which the Claytons had seen from time to time just approaching through the jungle in a semi-erect position, now and then placing the backs of its closed fists on the ground. A great ape. As it got nearer, John and Alice could hear the deep, guttural growls.
Run for the cabin and lock the door. I'll finish this fellow with my axe. I said run, woman!
After months of relative safety, John Clayton had grown careless. He had left all his firearms in the house and was armed only with an axe for protection. The weapon was hardly a match for the gigantic ape. The ape was a great bull, weighing probably 300 pounds. His nasty, close-set eyes gleamed hatred from beneath his shaggy brows, while his great canine fangs were bared in a horrid snarl as he paused for a moment before his prey. Over the brute's shoulder, John could see the cabin door, not more than 30 feet away. A great wave of horror and fear swept over him as he saw his young wife come out of the cabin, carrying one of his rifles in her arms. She had always been afraid of guns and would never touch them, but now she rushed towards the ape with the fearlessness of a lioness protecting its young.
Back, Alice! For God's sake, go back!
She wouldn't listen, and just then the ape charged, so Clayton could say no more. John swung the axe with all his strength, but the huge ape grabbed it in his powerful hand and tossed it aside as if it were a toy. With an ugly snarl, He closed in for the kill. John could feel the hot breath of the mighty ape on his face when a shot rang out, sending the bird scattering skyward. A bullet had entered the ape's back, right between the shoulders. Throwing Clayton to the ground, the powerful ape turned upon its new enemy. There before him stood the terrified girl, vainly trying to fire another bullet into the hairy body. But she did not understand the mechanism of the rifle, and the hammer fell upon an empty cartridge. The great ape leaped towards Alice. With no thought of the danger, John rushed forward to drag the ape from his fallen wife. With little or no effort, he succeeded, and the great ape rolled over on the jungle floor. The bullet had done its work. The ape was dead.
Alice! Alice! Are you all right? Speak to me! Oh, it's all my fault!
Alice had no marks on her. The ape had died just as it had leaped towards her. John picked her up and carried the unconscious woman towards the cabin. It was 2 long hours until she reawoke. She sat straight up in bed and looked around the cabin.
Oh, John, it is so good to be really home. I've had an awful dream, dear. I thought we were no longer in London, but in some awful place where great beasts attacked us.
There, Alice. Try to go back to sleep, and don't worry your head about bad dreams.
That night, a little son was born in the tiny cabin beside the primeval forest, while a leopard screamed before the door, and the deep notes of a lion's roar sounded from beyond the ridge. Alice never recovered from the shock of the great ape's attack. From that day on, she never went outside the cabin, nor did she ever fully realize she was not in England. 1 year from the day a little son was born, Alice passed quietly away in the night. John Clayton hung his head in grief and despair as the cries of his young son echoed out into the dark jungle. Although the baby's mother was dead, the child was far from alone in the jungle. In the forest of the tableland, a mile back from the ocean and the cabin where the baby lay, lived a large tribe of apes. The leader of this tribe was Kerchak. Kerchak was a huge king ape, weighing perhaps 350 pounds. His forehead was extremely low and receding. His eyes bloodshot, small and close set to his coarse, flat nose. His ears large and thin. His awful temper and his mighty strength made him supreme among the little tribe into which he was born some 20 years ago. Now that he was full grown, there was no ape or monkey in the jungle who did not fear Kerchak. One day, Kerchak was in an especially bad mood. All the other apes scurried to the high branches to escape their leader's rage. A young female named Kala was returning from her daily search for food. She was unaware of Kerchak's angry mood. In her arms, she carried a young baby. Suddenly, old Kerchak came thundering down upon her. To escape, she leaped off into thin air, grasping wildly for another branch or vine. She made the leap successfully, but as she grasped the limb of the further tree, her baby lost his grip on her neck and fell. She watched in horror as he fell twisting and turning 30 feet to the ground. With a low cry of dismay, Kala rushed headlong to his side. By the time she reached her baby, he was dead. With low moans, she said, cuddling the baby to her. Kerchak didn't try to bother her now. With the death of the baby, his angry mood passed as quickly as it had begun. A few minutes later, Kerchak moved to the center of a nearby clearing and spoke to his tribe in a loud and commanding voice. Apes of Kerchak, listen to your leader. Today we are going far from the tableland. You will follow me to the sea.
But why, big one? We have plenty of food here, and we apes have no love of the water. What is there for us?
Silence, old woman. You ask too many questions. We will go. I, Kerchak, have spoken. There is much for us to see there. We will visit the home of the strange white ape.
But, Kerchak, it is too dangerous. The white ape has the thunder stick, which has killed so many of our kind. Must we go?
No, you wish to challenge me, weak and powerless. Two-Blood, would you like to feel my fangs upon your skinny neck? Is this what Two-Blood desires?
No, Kerchak, but if only
My
you...
husband, or I will have a dead maid as well as a dead baby.
Carla speaks wisely, Two-Blood. At least someone in the family has some sense. Apes of Kerchak, follow your great and powerful leader to the sea! To the sea! After a short trip, the tribe of apes reached the cabin. They approached carefully, afraid of the thunderstick which had claimed so many of their tribe. The thunderstick they spoke of was actually John Clayton's rifle. This day, the thunderstick was quiet. There was no sign of life coming from the cabin, except a strange crying sound. It was baby Tarzan. Kerchak could see that the cabin door was open. Slowly and carefully, the tribe approached the cabin. Soon, Kerchak stood by the open door and peered in. Behind him were two males and Kala, still clutching her dead baby to her breast. Inside the cabin, they saw the strange white ape lying half across a table, his head buried in his arms. On the bed lay a figure covered by a white cloth. From the corner came the crying of a child. Suddenly, John Clayton awoke with a start. The sight that filled his eyes must have been truly horrible. There, standing before him, were 3 full-grown apes, and behind them, outside the cabin door, many more. His guns were on the far wall, and so the situation was hopeless. When the king ape released the limp form, which had been John Clayton, he turned his attention towards the crying sound coming from the cradle in the corner. But before he could hurt the child, Kala was there. As Kala took the little live baby in her arms, she dropped the body of her own baby into the cradle. Before Kerchak could stop her, she grabbed the child and bolted out the door. High up among the branches of a mighty tree, she hugged the crying infant to her bosom. She had found a baby, and Tarzan had found a mother.
Quiet, little white ape, or Kerchak will find us here in the trees. Kala will protect you now. You and I were meant to find one another, I think. You have no mother, and I have lost my child. We have much to share with one another. But what shall I call you? You must have a name, little white-skinned ape. I know. I will call you Tarzan. That means white skin in our tongue. Tarzan. It is a fine name. Now sleep, little white ape with a small nose. Sleep, my baby Tarzan. Shh. Sleep. Sleep. Sleep.
Little baby, lost in the jungle now, lucky to be alive. Poor little baby, alone and crying now, how will he ever survive? With wild beasts howling outside the door, lost upon a strange and savage shore. But the good Lord moves in mysterious ways sometimes, and you never can tell how the story's going to end. Poor little baby Tarzan needs a friend. Abaya, get warm in sleep, sleep my baby. Abaya, get warm in sleep. For the good Lord moves in mysterious ways sometimes, and you never can tell how the story's going to end. Poor little baby Tarzan just might find a friend. He just might find a friend. He needs a friend. Empty warm and sleep, sleep my baby. Empty warm and sleep, sleep my baby. Empty warm and sleep, sleep my baby. Empty warm and sleep, sleep my baby.
Tenderly, Kala nursed her little baby. Sometimes she wondered why he was so much slower than the other 8 babies. It was almost 1 year before he could walk. And as for climbing, how stupid he was. Sometimes Kala would talk to the older females about the child. Their conversations must have sounded something like this.
So, dear Kala, how old is that strange little baby now?
He is not strange, just different. And for your information, he is 1 year old.
1 year? My, how time does fly. It has been a whole year since the day you found him in the cabin of the white ape, and still he cannot feed himself. My little Mona is already out gathering bananas and swinging in the tree vines. But then, she is a normal, excuse me, dear, I meant to say, healthy girl.
Tarzan is normal and healthy too. He is just a little slower than the others. But what he lacks in speed, he more than makes up for in intelligence. My little Tarzan has a great future ahead of him. You will see.
I hope for your sake that you are right, Kala. A slow child can be such a burden and a danger, not just to himself, but to all of us.
Have no fear, old woman. I will care for my Tarzan, and you will live to regret the day you doubted his abilities.
Kala's husband was named Tublat, which means broken nose. He did not like the baby white ape at all. If it wasn't for Kala's constant attention, he would have put the baby out of the way long ago.
He will never be a great ape.
Said Tublat in a gruff voice.
Always you will have to carry him and protect him. What good will he be to the tribe? None. Only a burden. Let us leave him quietly sleeping in the tall grass, that you may bear other stronger apes to protect us in our old age.
But Kala would not listen to her husband's suggestions.
Never, broken nose. If I have to carry him forever, so be it. This child is mine.
Tublat went to Kerchik and urged him to use his authority to force Kala to give up little Tarzan. But when Kerchik spoke to Kala about it, she threatened to run away from the tribe if they did not let her live in peace with her child. This is one of the rights of the jungle folk, to live apart if they choose to. Because Kala was a strong-limbed female, they did not wish to lose her, and so they bothered her no more. And so the years passed, and the baby Tarzan grew. As Tarzan grew, he made rapid strides, so that by the time he was 10 years old, he was an excellent climber. And on the ground, he could do many wonderful things, which were beyond the powers of his little brothers and sisters. He was different from them in many ways, and they were often amazed at his superior cunning. They were stronger and larger than Tarzan. By the time the apes were 10 years old, they were full grown and stood over 6 feet tall, while Tarzan was just a half-grown boy. But what a boy! He could swing through the treetops with his brothers and sisters. It was easy for him to jump into space and grab a vine out of nowhere. He could drop from limb to limb, falling 20 feet at a time. Fast as a squirrel, he could climb to the top of the tallest tree in the jungle. Although he was only 10, he was already as strong as a man of 30, and far more agile than any athlete ever becomes. And day by day, his strength was increasing. He was 10 years old before he realized the difference between himself and the fellow apes. Suddenly, he was ashamed of his little body, which was burned brown by the hot sun. You see, he had no hair on his body. Tarzan thought he looked like a reptile or a snake. He tried to hide the fact by covering his skin with mud, but it dried and fell off. In the hills, high above his homeland, Tarzan first saw his face in the still waters of a deep blue lake. It was a hot day, and he and one of his friends had gone to the lake to drink the cool water. As they leaned over, Tarzan saw his reflection. He was horrified. That tiny slit of a mouth, and those thin lips and puny teeth. How weak they looked compared to the thick lips and powerful fangs of his lucky friend. And that little pinched nose. His friend had a thick, wide nose, which spread halfway across his face. How wonderful it must be to be handsome, thought Tarzan. He and his friend were so busy, they did not hear the rustle of the tall grass behind them. There, coming slowly and quietly towards them, was Sabor, the great lioness. She moved on padded paws without a sound. She was within 10 feet of the two fellows as she drew her hind feet up under her body. She was almost ready to spring. Suddenly, she let out an awful scream and leaped toward the young boys. Sabor used her scream to momentarily paralyze her victims with terror and acquire an advantage. But this trick did not work on Tarzan. His years of jungle living had taught him to meet emergencies with speed and action. He was smarter and faster than the apes. While his friend trembled just long enough for Sabor to strike, Tarzan sprung into action. Although he had never been in the water before, he dove headfirst into the lake to escape the lioness. Tarzan's friend was not so lucky, and Sabor carried him away back into the grass. Tarzan was surprised to learn that he could swim by running in the water. From that day on, Tarzan never missed a chance to cool off in the water of a stream or lake. None of the other apes would join him. They were all afraid of the water, and so Tarzan discovered he could add another power to his ever-growing list of skills. Tarzan loved to play mischievous games, especially on Tublat. Tarzan knew that Tublat did not like him very much, and the feeling was mutual. From the safety of his mother's arms, Tarzan would make faces at Tublat. One day, Tarzan discovered that he could make rope by twisting the grasses together. From that day on, he was always tripping Tublat or attempting to hang him from some overhanging branches. The wanderings of the tribe often brought them near the little cabin where Tarzan was born. To Tarzan, this place was always a source of never-ending pleasure and mystery. He would peek into the curtained windows or climb upon the roof and peer down the black depths of the chimney in vain endeavor to solve the unknown wonders that lay within those strong walls. The story of his connection with the cabin had never been told to him. The language of the apes had no words to describe what they had seen inside the cabin. So before Tarzan was old enough to understand, the subject had been forgotten by the tribe. Only in a dim, strange way had Kala explained to him that his father had been a white ape. He did not know that Kala was not his mother. One day, as Tarzan was fiddling with the door to the cabin, he accidentally found the right combination, and the door swung open. At first, he was afraid to go inside, but after a few minutes, he ventured in through the doorway. In the middle of the floor lay a skeleton, and on the bed lay another, smaller set of bones. Inside, a small cradle was a tiny skeleton. Tarzan had no way of knowing that these were the bones of his own mother and father. He examined many things in the cabin carefully. Strange tools and weapons, books, paper, and clothing. He opened the chests and cupboards. In one drawer, he found a sharp hunting knife. Almost immediately, he cut his finger on the blade, but this did not stop him. The knife is sharp, thought Tarzan. Sharp and dangerous. Tarzan used the new weapon wisely and carefully. With it, he fought and defeated many powerful animals in the jungle, including a battle in which he destroyed Sabor, the lioness. He skinned the mighty beast and took the hide back to his tribe to show what he had done.
Look, apes of Kerchak! See what Tarzan, the mighty killer, has done! Who among you has ever killed a great lioness like Sabor? Tarzan is the mightiest among you, for Tarzan is no ape. Tarzan is...
But there he stopped, for in the language of the apes, there was no word for man. The tribe had gathered around to look at Tarzan's proof of his amazing strength. Only old Kerchak hung back, nursing his hatred and his rage. Suddenly, something snapped in the wicked little brain of Kerchak, the king of the great apes. With a frightful roar, the savage beast sprang among the assembled tribe of apes. Frothing and shrieking in the insanity of his fury, Kerchak looked about for the object of his greatest hatred. And there, upon a nearby limb, he saw Tarzan sitting.
Come down, Tarzan! Come down and feel the fangs of a greater killer! You mighty fighters, fly to the trees at the first approach of danger!
Quietly, Tarzan dropped to the ground. Breathlessly, the tribe watched from their lofty perches as Kerchak, still roaring, charged the relatively puny figure of Tarzan. Kerchak stood nearly 7 feet tall when he stood up on his short legs. His enormous shoulders were bunched and rounded with huge muscles. His back-drawn, snarling lips exposed his great fighting fangs, and his little, wicked, bloodshot eyes gleamed in horrid reflection of his madness. Awaiting him stood Tarzan, himself a mighty muscled animal, but his 6 feet of height and his great rolling muscles seemed pitifully inadequate to the battle which awaited him. But despite his smaller size, Tarzan was not afraid.
I am ready for you, Kerchak. You are strong, but Tarzan is stronger. You depend only on your brute strength, but Tarzan has a weapon more powerful than sheer force. It is intelligence, something you do not understand. It sets us apart. It always has. You have laughed at this little white ape since birth, but now we will see who laughs last.
Tarzan's taunt made Kerchak even madder.
Words! Nothing but cheap words! Fight me, you weakling! You coward! You puny little white ape! Fight Kerchak the Great! Kerchak the Killer! Fight!
As Kerchak's last words echoed through the jungle, he and Tarzan were upon each other in battle. Tarzan had pulled his sharp knife from its sheath and answered Kerchak's curse with a blood-curdling scream of his own. Tarzan was too smart to let those hairy arms grab him. As their bodies were about to crash together, Tarzan grabbed one of Kerchak's strong wrists and, springing lightly to one side, drove his knife to the hilt into Kerchak's body, just below the heart. Kerchak screamed in pain. Straining the ape-man close to him, his great jaws sought Tarzan's throat. Tarzan responded by grabbing Kerchak's strong throat before the cruel fangs could close on his sleek brown skin. On and on they struggled, Kerchak trying to snuff out Tarzan's life with those awful teeth, while Tarzan tried to close forever the windpipe of his enemy. The greater strength of Kerchak was prevailing, and his sharp teeth were not much more than an inch away from Tarzan's throat when, with a shuddering tremor, Kerchak's body stiffened for an instant and then fell limply to the ground. Kerchak was dead. Withdrawing the knife, which had so often made him the master of muscles mightier than his own, Tarzan of the Apes placed his foot on Kerchak's neck. Once again, a loud yell rang through the jungle. It was the wild roar of the conqueror. The smaller human, by using his superior intelligence, had defeated the mighty Kerchak and become Tarzan, king of the apes.
Raised in the jungle since he was a child.
So, that was Tarzan for 1983. So if you like, subscribe, share, and comment, and have a groovy day with another video coming out real soon.